everyone. Okay, so as promised, I am just going to do a quick overview of our meeting that we had on Thursday night at the Fort Mill Library regarding dyslexia. First, I would like to thank Lisa for organizing this meeting and having it. It was a huge success. We had a lot of parents come out. I would say there was probably around 15 parents, which was a phenomenal turnout for a first meeting. The meeting was at 5:30. It ran about an hour. We finished up around 6:30. The library closed at 7, so we stood around and talked for a little bit afterwards. But overall, it was very successful. A lot of questions, a lot of answers. It was good. If you're able to come out to the next one, I would highly recommend it. First let me start with, we had Susan Bruce come down from Pro Parents. If you are not familiar with who Susan Bruce is, I highly suggest looking her up. You can Google her. You can also find her on our webpage under advocates. We have all of her contact information and a link to her website. So I would highly suggest looking her up if you are unfamiliar with her. She is a fee-for-service advocate, so she is available to advocate on your behalf, but she does charge for that. I'm not familiar with her pricing. I believe it would probably depend on how many hours she would have to put into your case. But she is a phenomenal speaker, and she does go around the area and speak on behalf of special education. So if you ever see her in the area, it is worth your while to go and listen to her speak. She is a walking book of knowledge. So we were fortunate enough to have her come with us, and she was able to answer a lot of our questions. So that was fantastic. So we thank Susan Bruce for that as well. First, let's start with Wright's Law. If you do not have this book, it is a special education law book. It's the second edition. It's Wright's Law. I would highly suggest going out and getting that. You can buy it anywhere. You can buy it on Amazon. I bought mine off Amazon. I've seen it cost anywhere between $22 and $29, $30. You can also get it at bookstores. I did check our local Barnes & Noble bookstore in the Charlotte metro area. They did not have any in stock, but they can most definitely order that for you. It is worth every single penny. I do want to say, if that is not in your budget right now, they do have a website as well. So you can go to, just Google in Wright's Law, WRIGHTSLAW law, and it will pull up their website. Their website basically has everything in this book, but the reason why I would suggest the book in addition to the website is that you can, as you can see, I've tabbed a lot of things in the book. So it's very easy, for you to just go back and flip to pages that, deal with you and your child with their IEP or 504. And you can also go through, I highlight it too. So, and you can use anything. I like to use these quick little sticky tabs, but I've seen people use, full on stickies and everything. So whatever is, you want to do with that. But it is a great book. It is well worth it. It goes through, just really quickly, I'll just, go through what's in it. It starts really with, the introduction of law and history with special education. It goes through everything: statutes, history of special education, IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education, the Education Act of 2004, everything you need to know about getting your child the best help through his or her IEP or 504 is in this book. In the back as well, there is a glossary. Sometimes if you're new to this process, you may hear quite a few words being thrown out in the IEP or 504 meetings. A lot of people use a lot of acronyms. They don't do it purposely to confuse you. I just think they're so used to, speaking this language, and sometimes they forget that some of us are new to this process. But if you hear anything that you're unfamiliar with, you can always go back and you can even look it up in the acronyms, abbreviations, and terms in the back of this book. So it's very helpful. They also have a very detailed index. So if you want to look up something specific, to dyslexia, or something specific to autism, or something, specific to your educational records, just go to the back, look it up, find the page, flip over. It's that simple. They also have a bunch of resources in the back of this book too. So in addition to the educational law, you can also flip through and find additional resources. So if you want to find additional resources on autism, you can just flip under A. It will list you a bunch of websites and groups regarding autism, and you can do some further research from there. So highly recommend this book. I also recommend that if you do get this book, you bring it to every single IEP meeting with you. Just the presence of it shows the school and the IEP team that you are involved and that you are knowledgeable and that you are advocating for your child. So I highly recommend that. We did discuss that at the meeting. It was also recommended via Susan Bruce to get that book as well. So it was a dyslexia meeting, but I do want to say that if your child does not have dyslexia or has not been diagnosed with dyslexia, we had quite a few parents there as well that did not fall into that category, but that just fell under the category of, parents that have children with other needs. My child specifically has not been diagnosed with dyslexia. I still went, and I had, even myself, I've been doing this for 6 years, and I still had a lot of questions that were answered. So it was well worth going. It's very welcoming. Don't feel uncomfortable if your child doesn't have dyslexia. It's a support group. We're basically all in this together. But we did discuss dyslexia, and I do want to say in regards, now this is to South Carolina specific, because every state is different regarding dyslexia. Overall, it is recognized by IDEA, the Individuals Disability Education Act. So a while ago, and it may even still be happening, there were school districts saying that we don't recognize dyslexia. Well, they're not allowed to not recognize dyslexia because it has been recognized on a federal level. So that trumps whatever the district wants to, say they don't recognize, they have to, and you just show them, say, no, I'm sorry, but here's the law, and whether you want to or not, you still have to recognize it. What is important with that, though, is South Carolina is a little different with this. So South Carolina itself, in 2013, there's a group called the Dyslexia Task Force, and you can Google that if your child has dyslexia or you feel your child may be at risk for dyslexia. I would highly recommend Googling the Dyslexia Task Force. They put together a 60-page report and brought it to the South Carolina General Assembly. And the South Carolina General Assembly looked at it, read it, recognized dyslexia on a state level, which was a big hurdle because up until that point they had not, even though IDEA did, but South Carolina itself did not. But they did end up recognizing it. However, the point of the Dyslexia Task Force was to implement screenings and teacher trainings so we can help our children in our schools that struggle with reading and writing and math, dyscalculia. They did not feel that that was a pressing issue at that moment, and still as of today, the South Carolina legislature still has not implemented any kind of mandated screening or teacher training for our teachers. So basically what they said is, okay, we are going to now recognize dyslexia and dysgraphia and dyscalculia falls underneath that. And but we're not ready yet to mandate any kind of teacher training or screenings for these students. So it's kind of like one step forward, 10 steps back. They recognize it, but they don't want to implement any resources to help our children. So we're still kind of caught in this, middle ground with nowhere to go. I mean, even if you have your child diagnosed with dyslexia at an outside facility, they go into the schools and they don't have any teacher training. They can't, really help our kids the way that they should. So that is kind of where, this all still falls with the state of South Carolina. I would highly recommend you get in touch with your representatives and ask them why they feel that the most common learning disorder, which is dyslexia, is not worth their time to mandate screening and teacher training programs. I think that's a very worthwhile question for our representatives to answer in regards to special education. It doesn't really make any sense. So when you get your IEP, what the schools will put under for dyslexia, because they will not put dyslexia, they don't have the resources or ability to diagnose or screen for dyslexia, so they can't put that on the IEP. They will put down specific learning disability. So they will call it another name. There's a lot of people that are just happy with it. Basically the thought process is, I don't care what they call it, as long as my child's getting help for it. And I agree. I mean, sometimes you have to pick your battles. The only issue with that is because they don't have the mandated training, you're still kind of stuck with teachers who aren't trained to teach your children properly, and they don't have the programs, to teach them how to read and write and do math properly the way that they need to learn. So that's kind of where we are with the dyslexia in the state of South Carolina. It's not, positive news. It's not the best news. I mean, if there's any takeaway, I guess it is that, at least we're now recognizing it as a learning. South Carolina decided to recognize the most common learning disability as an actual learning disability. So we got on board with that. But you're still going to, unfortunately, I'm not going to lie to you, you're going to have an uphill battle. It's still going to be an uphill battle. There are things you can do, though. If your child needs a specific learning program, such as the Wilson Reading Learning Program, you can get that implemented. It's going to be, a little bit of a harder road to travel, but you can absolutely still do that. We can talk about that at the next meeting because it's much more intricate and it would take way too long to get into here. So that's where we are. That was the discussion pretty much with dyslexia. So hopefully, we'll be able to get into a little bit more detail at the next meeting with it. Some other things that we talked about in the meeting that I just quickly wanted to go over. Things that children have on IEPs and 504s. At the elementary school level, there were a lot of parents there that had a child in the elementary school. I have one child who is a neurotypical child still in the elementary school, and my child that does have an IEP for autism is now in the middle school, specifically 7th grade. So he has one like a year and a half before we move on to the high school. In the grade schools, teachers, I had a very positive overall experience. We had a lot of teachers help my child along the way by giving him extra accommodations in the classroom, and this seems to be across the board. And this isn't a bad thing. I think this is a wonderful thing. I mean, the teachers are trying to help our children, and I mean, any help is appreciated. The problem comes from when they are giving those extra accommodations. Make sure you are documenting them when you go to your next meeting. Make sure that those accommodations are put into your IEPs or 504s, because if they are not put into your IEPs and 504s when they go to the middle school, and the teachers, they're transitioning from class to class, the teachers don't have time to, it's a completely different world in the middle and high school. And if you have a child there, you know where I'm coming from with that. If you do not, I'm telling you, it's a completely different world. Teachers just don't have the time that the elementary school teachers do. And, at the same time that it's a little bit more chaotic and a little bit more rushed transition from class to class, teachers are also implementing a lot of independence, so you just don't have the help that you do. So if your teachers in elementary school are, for instance, my child had, a color-coded checklist taped onto his desk so it could cue him every day. Well, that wasn't in the IEP. So when he went to middle school, it didn't happen. So that's what I'm saying. If your teachers are going above and beyond the IEP because they are good teachers, and we applaud them for doing that. I mean, that's what they should be doing. It's excellent work. But I'm just saying, make sure that you document that and make sure that gets in your IEP if you want it to follow into middle school, because if you don't, You're going to have to get it put into the IEPs in the middle school, and it can be a little bit more difficult at that point because, like I said, they do like to stress a little bit more independence. So that's just a something to be aware of if your child is still in grade school. In addition, if you have a child who is going from 5th grade into middle school, there is a program that you would have to talk to your special education resource teacher about with the middle school, that the middle school has. And your child has to be signed up through his or her resource teacher, and it is an orientation at the middle schools for children who have some difficulty with transitioning and crowds and such. And what they do is they bring these kids in for a week, or it might be 4 days, Monday through Thursday, or it might be Monday through Friday, I can't remember. It's a few hours a day. They orient these kids, they take them around the school. It's a wonderful program. This way, when they start school, it is not an overwhelming experience for these children. And this is a program that a lot of people don't know about. It's not advertised, but ask for it if your child is in 5th grade and this is the time to start asking because, you know, school's out in May, at least in the Fort Mill School District. And this is I don't know if other schools have it. So if your child is in Fort Mill, this is something for you to ask about. This is the time to start asking because we're already halfway through January, and it is a wonderful program, and it will create a much better atmosphere for your child when they transition into the middle school. I can't say enough good things about it. Paper trail. There was a discussion of paper trail. And this is pretty much, common sense, but some things you just tend to forget about. Have a paper trail for everything. If it's not documented, it never happened. And this goes for, you know, if you have a one-to-one conference with your teacher, follow up with an email and say, thank you so much for the conference. I really appreciate it. Thank you for pointing out that you are noticing that, you know, so-and-so is having some focus and attention issues. It's documented. I like to send all my emails with a red receipt. I suggest doing that. That way, if someone says, I never got that email, you can say, no, here you did, because here, you know, it says that you opened it and you read it. But document everything and keep everything. This is just a running record for yourself. It's not a gotcha. It's just, you know, people say things, sometimes they forget. You think something was said, it wasn't. It's just for your records. Keep a paper trail. If you are denied something via a 504 or an IEP, ask them to give that to you in writing as to why, and keep that. Again, that goes into that paper trail as well. You are allowed to appeal denials. That will take you to due process, but it is an option that you have. So don't feel that if you are denied an accommodation or an evaluation that you think is necessary, that's it, that's the end all. That's not the end all. You do have to take to a next step. It's not difficult. It's just a next step. And you know, you are allowed to do that, and we can talk more about that at the next meeting too. Never sign your child's IEP or 504 while you're in the meeting. This is for a number of reasons. They will ask you to do this. I don't think they're doing it to be vindictive, or I don't think they have a hidden agenda for it or anything like that. But it's better for you to have them send you the IEP. This way you can review it. You can make sure everything that you discussed was put into that IEP the way that it needs to be put into that IEP before you sign it. People say things and people write things down. You hear things differently. You think one thing means something and somebody may take it another way. So it's just a precaution before you sign that IEP and before it kind of becomes ironclad, to make sure that it is exactly what you went in there for. They will have no problem sending that home. Don't feel uncomfortable asking. They're used to it. I'm actually waiting on my child's IEP from the last meeting to come home so I can review it. It's not a big deal. It's expected. A lot of parents do it. But it's just, don't, it's a precaution. Don't sign the IEP while you're there. Recording meetings. A lot of parents don't know this, but you do have the option to record your IEP or 504 meetings. I do. I record my meetings. And again, it's not another gotcha thing. It's just another running record. IEP meetings can be a little intimidating if I'm sure if you haven't been in there, it can be a little intimidating. Even myself, I've been doing this 6 years. It's still a lot. It's still a little overwhelming. You're walking in and it's very emotional and you're advocating for your child and, you're sitting down. There's a lot of people. I mean, when you get to the elementary, there's a lot of people, but when you get to the higher grades, when you get into middle school and high school, there's a lot of people because every single teacher has to be there. So you have 4 of their, teachers for social studies, science, math, and English, and plus, school counselors, school administrators, school psychologists, people from the district. I mean, there's a lot of people that end up at these meetings. So it's, it's a lot. And with all those people, you have people asking questions and you're answering questions, and there's just no way you're going to be able to keep track of everything that was said the entire time. So record the meeting. This way you can come home, you can review it, you can listen to it again. It's just another running record for yourself to have. I give them the courtesy of letting them know that I am going to be recording it. You don't have to give them advance notice. I just like to, because I just don't want them to ever feel, defensive or, I'm trying to catch them in something. So I do email them ahead of time and I just remind them, listen, I will be recording this. Now at my last IEP meeting, which was just a few weeks ago, I brought my recorder, and the person from the district brought theirs too and told me at that time that it's district policy. This may very well be new district policy. I can tell you from about, when did I start going? Probably 2007, 2008, up until 2 weeks ago. This was never district policy because nobody from the other side of the table has ever recorded an IEP meeting. I've talked to a few people and they've never had an IEP meeting recorded either. So this could be a new district policy. I don't know, but I'm just letting you know that if they bring a recorder as well, this may be something that they're starting that's new. I'm not sure. So just don't be surprised. I won't be caught off guard. And last thing, there was a parent that had brought up a topic. She was looking for social skills classes to be added onto her child's IEP, and she was told that they did not have behavioral therapists. This is not true. Again, if you are ever told they don't have something or they can't give you something, get it in writing. They have behaviorists. My child had one. He was in social skills classes for a year, and they contracted with a therapist. Her name was Jennifer Godwin. She was out of the Early Autism Project from Fort Mill. I think she's still there. I'm not sure if she's still contracted through the Fort Mill School District or not. I don't know that. It was a very long time ago. It was either when he was in 2nd or 3rd grade, and again, he's in 7th right now, so I can't quite remember. But they do have them. So if you are seeking, some kind of social skills classes or some kind of behavioral therapist to help your child, and they say that we don't do that or we don't have that, get that in writing and ask them, put that back on them. Why don't you have them? And, so, all these other people had these social skills classes. So they have them. So get it in writing if they're saying that they don't. And that was pretty much it. There were just a lot of questions that were being thrown back and forth. It was the first meeting, so I think everybody was really anxious to try to just, get their questions out and get answers that we've all kind of been searching for over the years. But it turned out to be a very successful meeting. We are planning on, Lisa had planned on having another one in 2 weeks, which I believe that would be the January 28th at the same time at 5:30. I believe it's going to be at the same location at the Fort Mill Library. I haven't heard anything, in stone yet, so I don't right now I just, up on the website, I have it as a location to be announced because I just don't want to put something up there and then, you know, people see it and then not check back and end up going to the library and it's not the library, it might be somewhere else. So if it changes, or if I hear that, you know, it is the library, or if it's going to be somewhere else, I'll definitely let you guys know, and hopefully we will find that out as soon as possible. But all right, well, that's it. I hope to see you at the next meeting. If not, we can follow up again through, you know, kind of like a, you know, video blog. But all right, thanks. If you have any questions, post them on the page.